call the April 2nd meeting of the Berlin Board of Zoning, excuse me, Berlin Board of Zoning Appeals to order. First on our minutes of the meeting of February 19th. There are corrections. Is there a motion to approve?
I so approve.
I'll second that.
Okay. Move in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Bunning wasn't here, so. Next, Woody, if you'll start, it's an election of a chairman and a vice chairman. And I prefer somebody else to do that other than me, just to see. By the way, for those in attendance, we are a full board. There are 4 of us. I believe that in the near future, the mayor will be interviewing folks, and there usually are 5 of us, but there are only 4 of us that are seated. We have deferred previously on the nomination and election of chairman and vice chairman because we didn't have the full board, but the 4 of us are the full board, so we.
I guess it's appropriate for me to nominate someone for chairman.
Well, we're just ask for a motion.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion for a chairman for zoning appeals?
I'll make a motion that the chairman for the zoning committee is just right next to the right.
There's a motion that chairman be Mr. Moore. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed?
No. Now, next is the election of a vice chairman, and I will take the situation. The chairman may not supposed to be making a motion, but I'll move that the vice chairman be Woody Bunning. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any other nominations? If not, Mr. Bunning, you are vice chairman. Now, on our agenda, we had the Tingle Road requesting a variance being as the next matter that the board would take up. But as a courtesy to the mayor who is here, both of these were advertised at 6:30. So we will first take case number 4-2-25, which is a request for waiver of parking requirements for a public parking lot in an R2 residential district. And before I asked Mr. Gaskell to make a presentation, I should state, and I didn't know this until I got the packet, but apparently I am one of the trustees for the property, which is the subject of the hearing. The William E. Esham Senior Trust. I knew I was some of trustees of some of these trusts, but apparently on this one. I did not have any participation in the request. I did not realize that I was the one of the trustees, but if, and I believe that I can render a fair and impartial decision in the case, but if either of the members or anyone in the public thinks that I should step down, I will do so. Is there any?
I have no issue with chairing this meeting.
Okay. Anyone in the public would like me to step down? Speak now or forever? Hold your peace? Okay. All right. And Mr. Gaskell, yes. I'm going to deviate from my normal situation with Ms. Parsty giving us a summary because you're here and of course you're the attorney for the town. So I'll just let you start with your matter. I will say that it was publicly advertised, and it is a request for the waiver of parking area requirements for a public parking area in an R2 residential district. So Mr. Gaskell, if you want to tell us what the nature of the request is and call any of your witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Our request is really rather simple. The mayor and council have leased property owned by the Esham family located at Weston Washington Street for the purpose of establishing a public parking lot. And that use is permitted in the R2 zone because it is providing a use as a public service, and certainly public parking is a public service to the general public in town. So it's a permitted use, but we are still subject to the parking requirements of section 108-788, which requires that certain matters be addressed. One of which is in subsection D1, there's a requirement that there be a 20-foot gap between the street line and the parking areas. There is also a requirement that the property be landscaped on its perimeter. There is also a requirement that the parking area be either cemented or blacktopped. And those are the issues that we would like to have waived. Now, if you'd like to swear in our mayor, I would like to have him testify.
Well, I don't consider it necessary to swear in the mayor of the town when he is testifying before any of his boards. So, Mayor, you're welcome to testify.
I'll begin just for a moment before we get into the questions. First, congratulations, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman. I don't often sit at this table. I sit up there, so it's rather odd. I haven't sat here in probably 10 years, but it's nice to see all of you. I don't really come to board, commission, or committee meetings. I like to allow them to function independently. Tonight's an exception. Sometimes they are what they are, but it's nice to be here. And I do want to thank all of you for your service. I didn't get a chance to thank the HCC before they left, but you mentioned that you're looking for another. You aren't here for money. You're not getting well paid or compensated for your roles, but we do certainly appreciate the service that you provide to the town of Berlin. So thank you for that. I also want to recognize Councilmember Steve Green, who's in the audience. He also leads the strategic plan item for parking. So thank you again for having us this evening.
Certainly.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to start off by having you address the needs for more public parking in the downtown area and what the mayor and council have attempted to do over the years.
Thank you. So regarding parking, it's no surprise that a small town that's 157 years old really wasn't built for the car traffic that we have today. We hear that first and foremost that whether it's from our businesses, whether it's from folks that live in town trying to go to the dentist or the eye doctor, whatever it may be, parking's a challenge, right? We've seen that evident in our strategic planning process that was most recently completed last year. We also have seen that as a historical challenge for the town of Berlin, dating back to the parking study that we originally had commissioned by the mayor and council to be able to review some strategic planning items on how we can overcome this challenge. So it's not a new problem, it's something that we're trying to help alleviate. Will this lot do it in its own? Probably not, but it's part of a very integral puzzle in getting our parking lots up to where they need to be able to hold the volume of traffic that we're trying to bring in. It's also what we found through the strategic planning process, a bit of a cap on what our businesses can really see in the form of revenue and folks coming to visit their shops. So we're trying to provide that additional service of parking and hoping that it also provides some secondary economic benefits as well.
Okay. Now, we have been negotiating with the Esham family concerning this property for quite some time, have we not?
That's correct.
And this past December, it kind of came to a head, and it had a lot to do with our remaining ARPA funds.
Right. So the short time that we had to expend, the way that ARPA worked, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, they came as a direct allocation from the federal government, which is pretty rare. With that, you had a time constraint, right? So we had until December of 2024 to to be able to say, this is what we want to spend the money on. But you had until, or you have until December of 2026 to actually expend the funds. And then we received additional guidance, I want to say in like November, leading up to December, that said, in order to obligate the funds, which the mayor and council had done through a spending plan, that wasn't enough. We had to enter into a contract. So we had a series of funds that had to be moved. This was one of them, or actioned. So what we had to do was really accelerate the discussions with the property owner to secure the lease and make that, have a binding lease with them so that we did not lose the parking money or the ARPA funds.
So we were in a hurry prior to the end of the year to come to an agreement with the Eshams and actually execute this lease, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and in fact, does the board have copies of the lease? Okay.
Yes, we do.
All right. So for the record, I'd like that admitted. I know it's part of the record, but I just would like to put on.
Okay, that will be admitted as applicant's number one.
Does the board also have the concept plan?
We do.
Okay.
And Mr. Gaskell, I think I'm looking at it.
You are? Okay.
From there, correct?
That's it, yes.
And that is C-101.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'd like that admitted as well as part of the record.
The one notation I would say is that we are asking for the variance on the buffer, but this plan does show a significant buffer around the
It
property.
does. If we go to section 108-788D1, the ordinance requires that every off-street parking area for more than 5 vehicles shall be located at least 20 feet from any street line and from every residential lot line. If you look at that concept plan, it's it appears to be well over 20 feet right now.
Right.
But as I just stated, this is a concept plan, and it may not change. But if we do need that extra space, I would like to have the opportunity to have that provision waived.
So that is one of your requests, that if the concept plan changes the provision as to the required setback would be waived.
Yes.
And, yeah, okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I know you didn't count, I did, but I believe there's 101 spaces on that plan.
I'll trust you.
Does it appear that way to you?
It appears to have a lot of parking spaces on that plan. I trust that it's 101?
101, I counted.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
And that's on the concept plan, so that could increase, I presume.
It could.
Yeah,
It could.
okay.
Now, there are also other lots in our town that do not comply with that 20-foot separation requirement. Are you aware of that, Mr. Mayor?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you some pictures. I don't believe you guys have this, do you? Pictures?
I don't believe so, no.
I have 2 sets here. Pass them around. Do you recognize those photographs, Mr. Mayor, with what lots they would be?
I do.
Okay. Well, one of the lots is across from Island Creamery, is that correct?
That's correct. Artisan's Way.
Okay. And you can tell, just by looking at it, that there's less than a 20-foot gap, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, if you look at the email in front, our planning director actually measured this, right, Ryan?
That's correct.
And what was the distance from parking bumper to street?
That would be 15 feet.
Yeah, so that's obviously less than 20. What about the other lot?
The one over by the War Memorial?
Yes.
Yes. I recognize it. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and does that appear to be less than 20 feet?
It appears that way to me.
Ryan, how many feet was that?
That one is 13 feet.
Okay. So we're not setting a precedent here by asking for the less than 20 foot gap.
David,
Yes.
Can you, on the concept plan, do you know what that setback is so that we could determine, I mean, it looks, frankly, it looks like a lot more than 20 feet to me.
It does, but I can't,
Jimmy has a larger
I
version.
think it's 35 feet off of Washington, and it looks like it's 37 off the concept plan to the back of the parking space.
Right.
So,
You know why they made it 35 feet?
They allowed some space for stormwater management, which has yet to be determined.
Plus, I mean, I know that we have some folks here in the audience that probably have residential properties nearby. We're cognizant of that, right? So even though we're making this request, through the concept planning and through the entire process, we don't want to degrade a residential neighborhood by trying to solve one challenge to create another. So the mayor and council are cognizant of that, and we want to make sure that through this process, we try to adhere to this as much as possible.
Well, and this may be premature since we haven't even voted, but if it were granted, could there be a publication of the final concept plan in the newspaper so that we don't have to have another meeting and that type of thing, just so that the neighbors and those folks concerned would see what the actual final plan is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
yes, we
Oh, and asking for a waiver, are you asking to be relieved of any setback? Or are you going to maintain some sort of setback?
well, we, of course, we're going to do that.
But we don't know what that is.
Not quite yet,
Yeah, okay.
but obviously, we're not going to be up to the street with parking spaces. Now,
I would say that if they had to set a minimum, that keeping the precedent of the 15 or 13 feet as a minimum, what I think would be acceptable. It keeps with what's existing downtown already. If you had to fix it.
Zoning 20, right? Zoning is 20.
yes.
Right.
And if the board would like to set a limitation tonight to 15 feet, we're fine with that.
Yeah, that would be fine.
I mean, I really, no, you go ahead with your presentation. I've got a bunch of other questions.
Mr. Mayor, the lease requires that we put a split rail fence around the perimeter of the property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, section B1 of section 788 requires that we provide landscaping of shrubs or ornamental trees around the parking area. Is that right?
That's correct.
And we would like to have a waiver of setting those ornamental trees and low shrubs and do what Mr. Esham has requested and put a nice looking fence around the property, right?
Well,
That's correct.
and not, I don't mean to keep interrupting, but we might as well do it rather than save it all to the end. When I envision a split rail fence, with all respect, I envision Abraham Lincoln, splitting rails and putting them in a fence that would be more suited to the Gettysburg battlefield, it seems to be, than downtown Berlin. I think, should it be a board fence?
That's what my thought
Honestly-
Not
was.
a picket fence. but
Honestly,
a board fence.
the look that we would be going for, Mr. Chairman, is basically the fence that you have in your front yard.
Okay. Well, then, okay. It's not a split rail fence.
I understand that, but in trying to get this across the finish line with Esham's, the key is that every improvement has to be mutually agreed upon.
I-
And Mr. Esham kept using the term split rail fence, and we were on a deadline, so I put it in the lease. split
As the
rail
other
fence.
trustee, I will educate Mr. Ashton on what a split rail fence is.
We certainly appreciate his help, but we want to keep with the aesthetic of downtown and the neighboring properties.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, again, the lease in paragraph 4, section C, section B, specifically states, tenant is not permitted to pave or blacktop the premises.
That's correct.
And in section 788D2, it requires that the property be graded, surfaced with asphalt, concrete, or other similar material.
That's correct.
And we are asking for a waiver of that condition because we simply can't comply with it.
And the rationale behind that with the lease agreement is that we didn't purchase the property, right? This is really a trial to see whether it will work. The Esham family wants to make sure that if it doesn't work, that they can still turn that into something that's viable for the town and for them, which we certainly respect. So we want to try and do this in a way that if it is viable, then we can maybe do something other than a lease and maybe make the improvements at a future date. But right now, it's really a trial run for us.
Would it be a stabilized surface?
Honestly, at first, I think to get it up and running for this season, our Public Works Department's working to try grass this year. And then hopefully if it's successful, next year we'll get into some form of a solid surface. Won't be asphalt, but it'll be something more solid.
So it would be impervious?
We hope. We hope also because the stormwater management side, right? Since we don't own the property, if we were to put a big stormwater management pond in there that's built for parking, it's gonna really change the game of what the Esham family could do with the lot. If it didn't work out for parking, then now they have a stormwater management facility that doesn't really help them out.
And again, we are required to go to the planning commission and
I understand.
provide stormwater management plans that are sufficient. Those are really the requirements that we're asking a waiver from in section 108, 788, D1 and D2. According to 788, D4, this board has the ability to provide a waiver if it finds that there is an exceptional circumstance. And I would submit the fact that our lease provides that we can't blacktop this, and the code requires us to blacktop it, is a circumstance which would provide an incredible hardship for the mayor and council and the town, were we not to be able to get that waiver.
Okay, anything else?
No?
Any questions from the board?
I'd just like to add that it's 105 parking spots,
Oh,
because
is it?
I counted them.
I no longer back you, I back myself.
We're taking her.
Yeah, we'll take her word for it.
Right.
I have a question. I read where you're going to be establishing a fee to park. Am I correct?
That is the goal. The timing of the fee is unknown. The fee itself is unknown, but we are exploring the use of Park Mobile because we need to break even on the lease for the lot. We have used ARPA funds to cover year 1 and year 2, but it's a 10-year lease, and we want to have a sustainable path forward. Does that make sense?
So it's possible there wouldn't be a fee for the first 2 years?
It's possible that there would only be a fee during peak times,
I heard.
except for you, Mr. Palladino.
I expect you mentioned one of the reasons they probably have 35-foot setbacks here is stormwater management.
They've indicated a couple of places on there as potential.
And it's based on the size of that parking area, which by code, it should be paved. But by asking for a reduction in or a waiver to those requirements, you also alluded to the fact that you might want to make this parking area bigger.
I'm just saying, just in case, Mr. Bruni, I'm not an engineer.
I'm just looking to the future. Say you end up acquiring it and you've made a larger parking area. Now you don't have the facilities for stormwater management that we all normally have to comply with. I'm sure this engineer has designed this to meet what the requirements are.
No, I'm sure that he will. It's just that I'm a novice engineer. I don't know anything about it.
I mean, I don't have a problem with reduction to the code of 20 or something like that. But a complete waiver seems a little far.
Well, I would suggest a reduction to 15 feet. We have other parking lots in town, as we showed you, that aren't in compliance with that 20-foot requirement.
Those parking lots that have been here prior to zoning requirements that were established. I know what you're referring to, but all of them have been parking lots forever, since I've lived in town. But again, that's another issue. I'm just looking at this as, well, I'm hoping it becomes a parking area. I think we definitely need it. I don't have any disagreement with that, but when you do see the residential areas around it, they will be affected by whatever is improved here.
Mr. Vice Chairman, can you make the exception with the caveat that we still have to comply with all stormwater management?
If I could,
Because I
if
mean,
I
we're
could
still-
speak to
That's
that.
still our intention,
We have to comply
but
with
by state law.
Yeah.
If we are not putting impervious surfacing down,
Right.
that greatly reduces our stormwater requirements at this time.
Yeah.
But if we were to come back to asphalt or concrete or even gravel, we would have to completely revisit the stormwater management.
Even with gravel?
Yes, gravel is considered to be a
Yeah, they changed it.
impervious surface.
You're kidding.
Because it becomes so compacted that it,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know who
So at
did
this
that.
point, if we keep it only as grass, stormwater won't be impacted. But if we then put a, sorry, I keep struggling over this word, impervious surface down, we would have to do the full stormwater compliance.
Well,
Well-
and we are required by state law, we can't exempt ourselves.
No, correct.
And it is my understanding, even though it is a request by the mayor and council, that you would also seek to achieve site plan approval by the planning commission where the technical matters such as stormwater management and all that are more addressed.
That is correct.
Any other questions from the board? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to either speak in favor of or opposed to the request? If so, yes, please come forward and identify yourself.
Mr. Chairman, do you want them to have the table?
Well, we'll need a microphone, I believe.
Well, Judge, I don't know the ball.
Okay, you want a chair?
I don't need, I just got a suggestion.
All right, hold on, I do have to swear you in. You did solemnly declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth.
I did.
State your name and address.
Carol Rose, 307 Ann Drive.
Okay, you're welcome to sit down, Ms. Rose.
Oh, okay. I just had a suggestion.
Pull that, we want to make sure you can be heard.
Okay, I have a suggestion that I think will benefit the neighbor. My concern with the neighbors, especially like right across the street, if someone would have the need maybe to unexpectedly have to sell their home, and I think that just having this parking lot there would maybe be a hindrance, or maybe be a hindrance in getting a fair price for it. But with the landscaping, I understand about the fence, because I've sat there and I think it's a safety thing for all the neighbors to have the fence. We have an excellent group of ladies in town that do our beautification. And I don't see any reason why they can't go out there, see what needs to be done to landscape it so that it really looks nice, and the town buy them whatever they need to plant. We're not talking thousands of dollars to plant.
I understand, Ms. Rose. Those type of things are more addressed to the planning commission than the board of.
But they're asking for a waiver of
I know,
landscaping.
but they all, the site plan approval, we, are not committed to the details. That's in the subdivision and planning commission mandate in the Berlin Code. We understand that, and they have committed, of course, to a 15-foot setback, which, of course, the planning commission, should they determine to be so, can make it landscape. And I understand the obligation of the Board of Zoning Appeals is not to so much go into detail, but to approve the request in a conceptual circumstance based upon the fact that they have shown that there is a reasonable need for the deviation from the code. But the Planning Commission, it is their mandate to do things such as landscaping and other matters for the site plan approval.
Well, then what's the purpose of them asking you all to vote tonight to do away with the landscaping that's in the code? Because they're gonna have to put a fence out. It can't be both. I mean, if you say, yes, you don't have to landscape, the Planning and Zoning Commission's not gonna be able to tell them, yeah, you do.
So they can, certainly they can. Site plan approval, they can. But anyway, I don't.
Well, then
I
I'm
don't quarrel with
confused.
you.
Okay, but I mean, it can be done very inexpensively, and I think that what's getting lost, we all know we need parking, we all know that. But this is a neighborhood, and the people in those homes need to have, their concerns taken care of.
And we are.
This parking lot's not benefiting them in any way, it's benefiting the business centers. And I don't think they need to be, I think they need to be taken care of and taken seriously and not rush everything through. So, and I have one other question, and I haven't been able to read the lease because I can't climb stairs, but is there anything in there about somebody, the town has someone go every day or several times a day to make sure there's no trash and all that laying around?
Our Public Works Department will treat it just like it's a park or any other parking lot.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay. All right, that was my
Mr. Chairman, can I address the?
Sure, you can, yeah.
Just out of respect. So Ms. Rose, the Berlin Beautification, now the Horticulture Committee, we started that, and it's been a tremendous success. I can say for the mayor and council, our goal is to make this look beautiful. We don't want to try and improve. We're trying to improve every other parking lot. We don't want to skip this one too, especially since it's sandwiched in a residential area, but it's also surrounded by M1 industrial that we think that we can help buffer that a little bit and make it, you brought up property values. I think it'll look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing than just looking at the ice plant, hopefully.
Well, I don't think the most historic oldest home in town, just about, it's number 2 or 3, is right on that corner, Robin's Nest.
Right.
And I think that needs to be respected also.
Right. We
We understand
Dave
that,
did
Ms.
not
Rose.
say that. He said to no landscaping. So you can listen to the tape or whatever. That's
Well,
all I want to say.
I did reference what it says in the ordinance and asked that we get a waiver from it. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Yes, ma'am. Come right up, please. If you will raise your right hand, please.
Yes,
You do solemnly declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth before the board.
I do.
Okay, state your name and address, please.
Betsy Love, 207 Washington Street, Berlin.
Okay?
Well, obviously, I'm concerned about the neighborhood and the degradation of property values. But moreover, I'm concerned about increased traffic on Washington Street. We have many little children that play in the street all the time. It's a one-way now because we have parking on one side, so there's only one way. You have to pull over to get, to get through if you have two cars coming. So I'm also concerned about the increased traffic on Washington Street, and I'm also concerned about the pollution. My property backs up to Bottle Branch, and even in small storms, I see gray water, masses of gray water coming down Bottle Branch at a pretty rapid pace. So adding this impervious surface is very much a concern for what we're already doing in the town of Berlin in polluting Newport Bay, which has a failing grade every year. And we have to do something about it. We have to improve the way we treat stormwater. And it concerns me that the gentleman here insinuates that maybe we could cut back on stormwater. Maybe we could add more spaces. And this is really antithetical to what we should be thinking about doing. So I'm also thinking that if you go ahead with this plan, you need to increase the number of trees that you place in here around the perimeter of the property to hide the unsightly view that all those people that live on West Street are going to be looking at. Also, to protect the property values in the neighborhood and to try and infiltrate some of the stormwater that will be running off at the surface. Even if you don't pave it, put in impervious surface, eventually you're going to have nothing but sand and clay running off of it. You can see right now on West Street trails of sand coming off of the construction sites that actually have the stormwater curtains around it. So we've had some really powerful rainstorms recently that it breaks right through. And it ends up going straight into the drain, down Bottle Branch, and finds its way to the Newport Bay. So I want you to consider that. And also the children, lots of little children on Washington.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Ms. Love, so first, we definitely don't want to do anything that will degrade your property values. We want to protect that and the integrity of the neighborhood. With the entrance and egress of the lot, you notice, and this may or may not be already something you're aware of, cars would enter off of West and exit on Washington and then be directed out to
Broad?
Well, yes, so they would go past the ice plant, and the mayor and council are putting in funding in our FY26 budget to improve that pathway over to
So
Harrison and Broad.
they would not be exiting, coming up.
Our goal would be to
To
direct
west.
them to west to head out by the ice plant and then egress through Broad Street.
Well, it'd be very important because
We're going to do our best.
Not exaggerating.
I don't want to promise that no cars would come down your street, but
I'm not exaggerating about the number of children.
right. And then as far as the Newport Bay, we share your concern. The mayor and council took an advocacy role in writing letters of support for the Maryland Coastal Bays watershed grant that they just received. So we know that it's not perfect, but we do share your concerns about runoff and making sure that we do as little as we can to pollute or add to the degradation of the Newport Bay. So.
Right, and so with that, we wouldn't want to go the way
Well,
the attorney has said.
Well, I think that maybe it got misstated, but we will comply with all stormwater management for the site.
Yes, we will.
Very good.
And if we want to lock into 106 spaces, we can do that
We can do
today
that
too.
too.
You can make that a condition.
I think Miss Allen was at 105.
105.
Can I add something? I'd like to add something.
Yes.
I think, and
Wait a minute.
Identify
Jim Charles, Public Works Director.
Right, you do solemnly declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury, the testimony you give is the truth.
I do.
Okay.
Being the director, I attend probably 90% of the events. So the traffic on Washington right now is high volume, because when people come to these events, they're searching every street for an open spot. So yes, there is high volume on Washington right now. With this plan and this parking space, we will have signage directing people, and if most of our volume is coming down Main Street, to take west directly to that parking lot. So we're helping to relieve the people driving around. Obviously, everyone's gonna try to drive around, but to help stop with that on Jefferson and Washington, it might relieve if people see a direct way to go to West Street to park in this parking lot. And then even coming off of Broad, we would have some signage to get people into that area. I'm not gonna say it's gonna stop people from being on Washington. So they would see maybe a higher volume of foot traffic, but we're hoping with this parking lot, we're seeing less cars, and then they can go directly to the West Street parking lot.
Any questions of the Public Works Director?
The plan, right now, as the waiver is proposed, is going to be like a grass parking area. How do you delineate the spaces?
So how I looked at that is using kind of generally the footprint of this plan, we would take signage and say, we would put up 4x4 posts, and on each side of that 4x4 post, we'll start with the entrance. So we'll have enter here, and on the back side of them 4x4s, we'll have no exit. And then we'll have signage within the parking area to direct people to exit with signage with an exit with an arrow.
Yeah.
And then over on Washington Street, we'll have exit here to get that flow of traffic
And right turn.
and right turn.
Yeah.
In the parking lot, I looked at it as we can get signage that says park between the signs with an arrow. In that 100 foot where, say, the middle section there, we're parking people parking here, and then at the other end of that, where we designate, we'll have park between the signs with arrows pointing.
I mean, will you have like curb stops or wooden?
We could put that
landscape
stuff,
lines
we
in
could
between
put posts
people
and landscape.
You're not going to do 106.
No, our first, this year is a proof of concept, really. The first 2 years is gonna be proof of concept. So what I keep saying to everybody is minimal viable product as far as what we have to put in there to get the lot established. Now, where we're not going minimal viable product is how it looks around the edges, because that has the biggest impact on the residential folks and our people that live here. But on the interior, it's gonna be minimal at first to see if it works. We're not gonna expend taxpayer money on something that's not gonna work out well. And really, this is our first attempt at onboarding a new parking lot in Berlin, probably in what?
Longer than I've been here.
And Mary has been here for a year, so we've been, 1991.
Yes.
And I always say this, I was born in 1990, makes her feel young. So we haven't onboarded a new lot in 30 plus years, so this is gonna be our first time. We gotta figure out if it's gonna work.
Okay. Anyone? Yes, ma'am. Come forward, please, and identify yourself.
Laura Stearns, 102 South Main Street.
You do solemnly declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth.
I do.
Okay?
My daughter we're building a house for her right there across from the parking lot. I'm cognizant of the fact that we've already leased this property. It will be a parking lot, so tonight we're just discussing the setbacks. My thought is, first of all, I have some questions. The setback includes the sidewalk? Does it include the sidewalk?
So
From the street?
So first, we can't have a parking lot unless they say we get a waiver, right? Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So,
Okay.
that's first.
So it doesn't
So we
matter.
are, yeah, if we can't get a parking lot, then,
I'm actually happy to have a parking lot because it does not change the skyline. I would prefer a parking lot over them selling the property and townhouses or like those mini houses in West Ocean City. Berlin is very sought after for real estate, and it's an inviting lot for developers to come in and pack as many houses on that piece of property. Having a parking lot, solves the problem of, parking, but it also keeps the skyline. And I like that open space there. And so,
It's funny that you say that, because Mr. Esham, every time, I kept going, Steve and Jay know this, but I kept going, Mr. Esham, come on, if I prepay you $60,000, let's discount the rent a little bit. And he's like, son, I can already get more than what I'm giving you. So I think to your point, it could definitely be something that is not a parking lot.
Ms. Stearns, I'd like to address your question. Says this is the ordinance, every off-street parking area shall be located at least 20 feet from any street line and from every residential lot line. So it would include any sidewalk, the 20
So-
feet would.
the lots that we're talking about in town, especially the War Memorial lot, that's jammed in a downtown section. Here, we have more space. So to me, there's a little bit of leeway. This is the first time I'm seeing this plan, but towards the back part of that lot is just the railroad tracks. Couldn't we move it back towards the railroad tracks and then not as much where it's residential to kind of make up for that? Or is that where the pond is?
That's where,
Railroad has a right of way.
Yeah, they actually own a certain distance from the.
It's 30 feet from the center of the rail on each side.
So then, right now, we have to be 20 feet off of that?
that's not a residential lot line.
They
Okay.
actually have a larger setback off the railroad, probably for more
Yeah, it's 30.
landscaping,
Yeah.
so, but that, I don't think they can push it back. I mean, they've got a nice plan here, and I think really what they're asking for tonight
Well,
is a waiver to the paving requirements, because they can't pave and use it as a parking lot.
I understand
But
the
ultimately,
paving
I think they would
situation.
have to pave if it does become a parking lot, I think.
And if we own it.
Yeah.
Mr. Ashton's not going to let us pave it unless we own it.
Unless you are. So if they ever own it as a parking lot, it'll probably be paved and have to comply with all the stormwater management requirements.
I
which
would
is
be for the
land-based.
lot unpaved, because it doesn't make sense to pave it until they know if it's,
Viable.
yeah, something that works for the town.
We're
But the
agreeable.
setbacks, to me, if we didn't pave right away, we could leave the setbacks where they are for now, until we saw how successful the lot is. We could always come back and, before you pave, then adjust the setback, couldn't you? And to me, if you're putting in a fence, and if there's gonna be a fence there and a sidewalk, I wanna see a lot of landscaping, especially if it's not paved. Because, it might end up ruts, it might end up unattractive. But if we had a buffer of trees and shrubs and it was, park-like, then I would be much happier. That's all I have.
I think that
Claiming you don't intend to ever do any landscaping, you just need a waiver to what this
Yeah.
code is requiring right now. And-
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remind everyone, this is just to allow the concept to go forward where they have the specifics that are required
Okay.
at the planning commission for site plan approval. Site plan approval actually is the determination of what you can do on this site and how those are limited by the requirements of the planning commission.
I understand.
Again, ours is an approval process to get it started, but it's just the process number one. And then there are other processes which they have to do, including stormwater management, which is a significant situation that they have to comply with.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I came and asked questions because I had no idea.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, please come forward and identify yourself. You do solemnly declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth.
I do.
Okay, identify your name and address, please.
Janelle Gerthofer, 102 West Branch Street.
Okay.
First, I want to thank the mayor and council for looking into this problem, because we know parking is a problem and there needs to be some sort of solution. This seems like a viable solution. I do think we keep talking about this concept plan, and conceptually, the plan is showing us that the setbacks can be met, which is I think a really important thing. That gives the planning commission, when it gets to that point, a chance to be able to say, we do want to see fencing and plants here. So I just wanted to kind of put that forward and saying the conceptual plan is showing things that follow the code, other than, of course, the paving. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, and they're showing that because we hear the feedback originally. This request tonight, as Mr. Moore said, Chairman Moore, it's designed as the first part of the process. This concept plan is like, hey, let's get it on paper so that we can have a conversation. But it's with the direction of the mayor and council that say we want to protect a residential neighborhood. We want to make sure that it has that green space buffer. But it's still in its infancy, so we don't really know exactly what it is. But we hear those concerns, and it's not falling on deaf ears. Councilmember Green's here, I'm here. My council colleagues will certainly get the same feedback. We hear that, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that we protect that.
And thank you, and I think this is really a good chance for the town to kind of set an example for what we can make a parking lot look nice.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as an aside, in order to get on the agenda for tonight, I filed the appeal before we had the concept plan. So
Right.
we didn't know, when I filed it, I didn't know we were going to meet or exceed the 20 feet. That's why we
didn't
asked
know
for
what we
20
could do.
feet.
Right.
We didn't have a plan.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes? Please come up and identify yourself. Could you raise your hand, please? You do solemnly declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you give this board is the truth.
I do.
Okay, state your name and address, please.
I'm Sandra Kirkland of 207 Washington. And I'm glad to hear tonight why there was such a rush with this project to get the ARPA money. And I'm dying to know, is the ARPA money in the bank yet?
So it's in Mr. Esham's bank. It's not in ours. We expended, so the way that it worked is we earmarked the funding, but then we wanted to use that to secure the lease payment for 2 years so that we're cognizant we don't want to use taxpayer money to cover the cost of a lot that's predominantly probably going to be used by visitors, right? So we wanted to front the lease payment for 2 years, and then we're hoping that through revenue generation, as Mr. Palladino brought up, during peak times, that we can make enough that it will offset the lease in year 3 and subsequently to the end of the duration of the lease.
Okay, well, I just, given what's happened with the schools and money being withheld, I
Yes.
wanted to make sure.
Yes, ma'am. We have too many federal grants that are, I'm 35, but it's making me grayer by the day because we have millions of dollars that are being withheld, whether that's in our local school systems, whether that's through transportation grants, whether that's the ability for us to apply for funding for our community center. It's all being pulled right now, so we're equally frustrated. So.
Wow, okay. And I just wanted to kind of offer a different perspective. One is in terms of if you did have to cancel the lease, the $60,000 is kind of nothing compared to what I anticipate the decrease in property values is to those houses right across the street from, the parking lot. It's kind of the lipstick on the pig idea. We can dress it up, but it's still a parking lot. And in the event that you would need to break the lease, I offer this idea, that it really isn't exempt from residential, because the residential exemption requires that not including such uses as storage yards, warehouses, or garages. And so if I were arguing a way to get out of the lease, I would say that a parking lot stores cars, and thus it's really a storage yard at times, and isn't eligible to be exempt from residential. So, you know, as a resident, I'm disappointed that this happened seemingly so fast. Now I understand why. But, you know, now I understand how the chicken project came to be. Because, oh, it's such a great idea. Let's go, go, go. We need parking. Yes, this is it. And here we go.
The one thing I will say, and I know that nobody likes to pay taxes, but we are in the business of everybody's home being valued at its highest value, because that's how we make money to be able to cover everything we do as a municipal government. So we aren't in the business of eroding people's property values, because then you're going to pay less in taxes, right? I'm just saying, we all share the same concerns. We want to make sure that your home, if you want to sell it, is capable of being sold at its highest and best value.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yes, come forward, please. You do solemnly declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth.
Yes, I did.
Okay?
Norman Bunting Jr., 201 Pitt Street. I'm also a member of the Esham family, but I was in no negotiation with the mayor and council as to a lease of the lot. The only thing that I want to bring up is there's also on Vine Street a grass lot. Not talked about, it's something that I'd like to bring awareness of, that there is a lot behind Burbage Funeral Home, and it's all grass and used as parking. So for the first couple of years of using it as a grass lot, it's been done before. That's all that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I think when Kirk built that, it's a special type of material he put down just for parking area. It's not your typical grass that I have in my front yard.
Right.
Yeah, you're right, there is one there.
No, and it's designated with parking. I know that was one of your questions. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, anyone else? Yes, sir. You do solemnly declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth.
I do.
Okay?
Eric Pfeffer, 111 West Street, right across the street. Also,
Sit down if you will, so we can get you on the microphone. We can hear you, but we want to make sure the record does.
Eric Pfeffer, 111 West Street, right across the street from the property in question, and also a member of the Town Planning Commission. Some of my points may be moot after this first point, but it seems like we have precedent for this to be tabled and go to the Planning Commission prior to approval of a request of a waiver for just a concept plan. Now, I don't know, maybe you can provide clarification if a waiver is granted, does the Planning Commission have the authority to say, oh, well, no, you have to push back your parking setback?
Well,
Because that does not give us that much grounds.
Respectfully, I'm not sure that that's appropriate, because if the Planning Commission determines that the circumstances are such that they want this, that, and the other, then what are we supposed to do after that? What we normally do is, our job is to determine for a potential use of the land. The Planning Commission, as you know, is mandated to designate the circumstances of that use of land, including all matters that are within their prerogative. But without us giving a tentative approval with whatever conditions the board deems that are appropriate, then there's nothing for the planning commission to consider because it's a prohibited use in the context that Mr. Gaskell has stated. So respectfully, I think that's the cart before the horse.
Correct, but you're not approving a.
We're not,
permitted use.
what we are being requested to do is to allow a parking lot to have circumstances that are otherwise prohibited by the code unless, as Mr. Gaskell quoted, unless the Board of Zoning Appeals determines that those deviations are allowed. It then goes to site plan approval, which I'm preaching to the choir when I say it's a very important function, because that's when the landscaping and the nature of the use and the specifics of stormwater management and setbacks and numbers of spaces is determined by the planning commission.
Gotcha. So your approval is just saying, okay, we
haven't
yeah,
decided yet, but
Tentative.
without that, the planning commission has nothing to consider.
Yes, well, I asked that, I think it's important for the public to know, because I think that's where a lot of the, public, worry is that a waiver from those requirements means that can be done if those requirements are waived, strictly based on what the Board of Appeals has to, whatever you rule on.
Okay, I'm not sure.
So Eric, you came up and spoke to the mayor and council as a resident and a member of the planning commission about the lot. I'll renew my request. Can't see through David. I'll renew my request. I know my assistant reached out, but as somebody that lives directly across from the lot and a member of the planning commission, myself, Steve, and Jay, and I'm sure the town could benefit from having you on our internal planning team. If that's something you want to do, we greatly appreciate your service. So, not to put you on the spot publicly.
Well, I don't know.
I will. I have no
This
chance.
is a public venue to do that, but we can discuss afterwards. I also just want to point out a few clarifications, just because they've been mentioned a couple times. This plan is showing 110 parking spots.
Is it 101, 105, 110? Can somebody figure it out?
In the upper right-hand corner, it calls out 105 parking spots plus 5 ADA spots.
Okay, perfect. So 110.
In regard to the comment about the right-of-way for the railroad, it looks like that is being acknowledged in the site plan, and then there's an additional 40-foot rear yard setback to that railroad right-of-way. And then the parking as shown in the concept plan, at least, is set back even further from that. So it seems, again, just to state it for everybody, that there is a lot of space towards the rear of the lot, even within the building setbacks, not within the 20-foot property buffer to grow the parking area. So I just wanted to clarify that, because we've been talking as if that didn't exist in that.
I think the rear of the lot also has several large trees. It's kind of a wooded area, and they're probably trying to protect that to some degree.
It's not really, it's a lot of invasive species and vines growing up, trees that are probably already dead, but yeah. This is also a naive question, maybe, but I just was hoping for clarification. The permitted use of this as a public service in an R2 in the town code states that a publicly owned building and properties of administrative or public service type, section 108.32 or 325.6. Does a lease agreement qualify that as a publicly owned
Yes,
property?
the lease does.
Okay.
Yes.
Just curious, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please, come forward. You do solemnly declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you give is the truth.
I do.
Okay?
Ron Cassio, Walnut Hill. It just seems to me like this is very hastily and ill-prepared. I understand the reason why, but it seems like there's not enough information to really base proper decisions on. And the other thing is I'm really disappointed that the town who tries to get people to follow the codes is asking for so many exemptions or variances. When it seems to me like we should be walking the talk.
Pardon me, it might be me. I'm sorry. I apologize. Mayor, I should have told myself to turn.
It's okay, it's your meeting, Mr. Moore. I keep thanking everybody as if I'm running.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid that's my wife, so
You better answer it.
Mine would go
I
off.
apologize. Ron, go ahead.
I just, I'm disappointed that the town, she must need you, Joe. Answer the phone.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
It just seems to me, I'm disappointed that the town is coming here asking for variances when, so many variances, when we should be walking the talk rather than setting a precedent. Pick up that carryout, Joe, don't forget. That the town should be walking the talk here rather than requesting so many variances. They should be setting the pace. I understand, again, the expedience that you're trying to get through here, but I'm just disappointed. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Gaskell, anything else you want to present?
I don't really feel the need to, but I'll say again, without a waiver of, at the very least, the blacktop requirement, we're dead in the water. We don't have a parking lot if that's not granted.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board?
I recounted 108.
I feel like we should start like a competition.
Yeah.
Anybody can truly sell one today.
I used 2 in the corner, 3 in the corner.
So the only comment that I would have is, I understand why you're here before the board, and I don't see it as you're asking us to grant a bunch of variances. Because ultimately, besides the paving, when you build this parking lot, if you do own it, you have to comply with stormwater management. You have to comply with setbacks because you're going to need the area for stormwater management. It's probably going to look exactly like this. So I just kind of want to make that clear. It's really a waiver to the paving, and perhaps landscaping to a degree, but I don't even think it's landscaping because you're going to make it look nice when it's done. That's my only comment.
And as Mr. Gaskell said, the information to the BZA was submitted before we had the rendering back, so we were kind of.
Had to ask for everything I thought we might need.
But you're pretty spot on. What you see is probably what you're going to get, but with some better depiction of how it's going to try and look more like a park.
Well, I think you also want to know if it's going to work, if people are going to use it.
Yeah, my comment is really mirroring what Woody says. The request tonight is fairly minimal in the technical obligation of the mayor and council to even be able to go forward with what everyone really has been focusing on, and that is the nature of the use as a parking lot. How it is going to protect the surrounding properties and all that. All we're asked to do is weigh minimal requirements, a minimal change for requirements that would prohibit them, based on the terms of the lease, from seeking parking. So it's not site plan approval by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I don't know if the vote is in favor that it would be with certain conditions or not, but certainly, whether or not we put it in there, they have to get site plan approval. And that's where stormwater management and these matters come up. Not that we are abrogating our responsibility, but our responsibility is not to get into site plan approval. I just want everybody to understand that. I don't know what the vote's going to be, but as Mr. Gaskell said at the beginning, it is a request that we are allowed to consider under the code from provisions in the code that prevent them from even beginning to request a parking area. So with that, any other comments or questions from the board? Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the waiver, particularly for paving. And I would like to add that it's not a waiver to all setbacks. I think you could even, at the least, comply with the setbacks requested in the code from the street lines, as expressed in the code. So I guess my waiver would be to that limit. In other words, right now you might have 35s or 40s. We're talking about perhaps a minimum of 20. Because I think to expand that parking area even more with paving, if it ultimately got to that, 20 is not going to cut it to comply with some amendment. But if that's my motion, that we approve the waiver to that degree.
But not the waiver to the 20-foot requirement.
To 20. In other words, down to a minimum of at least 20,
Well,
as the code required. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Just wanted to understand. So you're granting a waiver to the paving requirement.
Granted, yeah, waiver to the paving and to a setback of a minimum of 20, because I think the code requires a minimum of 20 for street lines.
It does.
Okay.
And that we are also determining that it is a use that can be utilized in a residential site, as you mentioned, Mr. Gaskell, because it is of a public nature for a public benefit.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, regarding the fence, I don't have an issue with the fence because I think ultimately there will be landscaping here as determined by the planning commission as to what has to be planted. I don't have an issue with the fence.
Well, but Mr. Asham in the lease has required the fence.
Yes.
So,
That's included. All right, well, that could be part of it.
right.
Okay.
That's the motion.
I
Yes.
second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And I apologize. I'd like to take a 10-minute recess so I can call my wife and tell her why I haven't come home.
That's perfectly fine. Thank you. Thank you all for your waiver this evening and feedback, and thank you to the public for their feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, David. All right, I missed one time. All good?
Good job, Jimmy John.
Thank you.
Jimmy John. All right. Let's see. Couple more.
Yeah. She was still in DC. Yeah.
Okay, I kept looking around.
Yeah. She had planned to be here. Huh? No wonder. Well, I'll tell you. Sunday night, Monday night, I had to turn my air conditioner on last night. I had to turn my HVAC on. It was just too hot, yeah. Of course, when you get home at the end of the day like that, at least my house, I can open up all the windows I want, but there's just not enough airflow. And, yeah, so by the time I went to bed. I always open my kitchen window and then I have to re-rinse my dishes because they're gritty. Yeah, you don't have to hang out with this. Nothing to do with you. All right, have a good night. See you tomorrow. And now we can describe ourselves as being
Hi, guys.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good, are you?
A warm day?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
I thank everyone for their consideration. I have accounted for myself and I have turned the phone off. So the next matter on the agenda is case number 4-2-2503 on 122 Tingle Road requesting a variance. And I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, that the mayor and council are the applicant in this as well.
correct.
All right? And Ms. Bowen, if you'll just stand, raise your right hand. Yeah. You do solemnly declare that under the penalties of perjury, the testimony you're about to give is true.
Yes.
Okay? Go ahead, please.
Excuse me. As everyone is aware, our former planning director, David Engelhardt, passed away about a year ago. And we have, this particular case, we have been unable to ascertain exactly what his thought process was on the approval, but as far as we can determine, that approval was made in error, to put it as simply as possible. Excuse me, the significant error had to do with the alignment of an accessory building to the primary structure already existing on the property. So essentially what we're asking for tonight is to ask your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your retroactive approval on that situation, because it would represent a significant hardship to the property owner to have to take the building down as they have built it and move it to be in compliance with code.
Okay. And as I understand it, because the applicant presumably made an application that was granted by Mr. Engelhardt, then the variance, the conditions requesting the variance was not caused by the action of the property owner, but the action of the mayor and council through their designated planning director in granting the request.
That is correct.
And we have in our packet some exhibits, and the one that I would refer to is the exhibit not the next page, yes, this one. This shows the property in question, which is at the intersection of Upshur Lane and Tingle Road. And I'm not clear as to which accessory building we are talking about. Is it the one adjacent to Upshur Lane?
It is the one that has the number 17 circled up in the corner.
Oh, okay, all right. So it's the one that is the property line closest to what is the adjacent lot, not Upshur Lane, correct?
It is closest to Upshur Lane. You were correct the first time. Maybe I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was, right. It's the one that appears to be, it looks to me like it's hand-drawn.
I believe so.
Yeah, and it is the one that is adjacent to Upshur Lane, which shows a 10-foot setback denoted in someone's handwriting between Upshur Lane and the side of the building, correct?
Correct.
And what that should have done is, under the code, because it's on a corner lot, it should have been tucked, for lack of a better word, behind the principal building so that it conforms with the location of the principal building.
Correct.
So it juts out toward Upshur Lane. Right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
All right. Anything else?
That is it, as I noted, that is the primary purpose for the request this evening. I will tell you as well that the actual property owner is also present if you wish to.
Okay. The only exhibit that we have, well, let me ask you this. Is there a verification that the, am I looking, it looks like it's hand-drawn to me.
It is.
Yeah, okay. Has there been verification from the town that the actual hand-drawn denotation of 10 feet to the property line from the side of the accessory building has been verified?
It has been. What is drawn on this plan is what is existing or what they are in the process of building.
And for the record, who verified it?
Was it you or Carol?
No, it was Rick.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It was our consultant, Rick Baldwin.
It was Rick Baldwin?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, is there a sidewalk along Upshur Lane? I apologize, I didn't read
I
it.
don't believe so.
No,
There is not?
no.
Okay, all right. Okay, any questions of Ms. Gold?
I guess my question would be, how would he verify that it's 10 feet from the 30-foot right of way? I
I'm
mean,
not sure.
in other words, we're being asked, the way I see it, I think we're being asked to approve this because of a town mistake, which I understand, I don't have an issue with that. But we don't have anything that verifies that that particular structure has been put there. In other words, normally people have surveys to determine
Right.
an as-built location. In fact, I thought even the town of Berlin thought.
I think I understand what you're asking. I believe that he measured the distance from the side of the building to the apparent property line, the edge of the road.
But I think, well, if we approve what you're asking for here, it's giving some finality to this drawing, which technically is not, I might use the word certified, or, we don't know if it's accurate, that's my.
I understand.
I'm just.
Well, it is, well, let me, of course, and Mr. Baldwin's not here.
No.
Right, no, and not that he had to be, that's not where I am, but If there is no sidewalk, then the only determination, I think, of the side of Upshur Lane is not necessarily the paving or anything like that. It would actually be the two corner markers that were placed, and of course the site plan was prepared by Mr. Bunning, but you did not prepare any of the matters that were questioning about.
What I did on here back in 2000, this is actually, I tell you what's about this drawing, it's labeled site plan. And it's also labeled, I just noticed this, it's a proposed one-story dwelling. Even that dwelling hasn't been established as being built here. We don't know they built that house in the correct location. Now and in fairness today, somebody should have picked up on, well, if you're going to use a site plan, we need a current survey to show where that house is, because you're basing your other building based on that location, which we don't know where it is. It really confuses it twice.
And I completely understand.
I mean, I don't have a problem with him approving what he did, but I don't see how we know where it currently is. In fairness to the property owner and everybody.
And what is this 10-foot, 8-inch, or a 10-foot by 8-foot proposed shed?
I believe that what has happened here is that years ago they came in for a shed, which has been built. It is there, it exists.
Okay.
They
so
just
there is a
reused
shed.
the same drawing to add the accessory dwelling. And as I said, the property owner is here. She would probably answer this better than I can.
This particular structure we're talking about, if I read it right, is a two-story.
Yes, the structure we're talking about that is labeled 17 is two-story.
And what is the second story? I mean, is it livable or is it an apartment or something?
No, it has no facilities being put in to make it a livable space beyond what is allowed by code. As I'm sure you're aware, code does permit a bathroom and a sleeping area, but it does not have kitchen facilities.
Right.
And the only thing that's kind of important to me is whether or not it has been built in conformity to what's indicated on here. And I can't see or can't do that from this drawing. That's what I can't tell.
Well, and of course, for the record, for the folks in the audience, everyone realizes that Ellie Bunning Surveys Inc. is Mr. Bunning. And if he is unable to verify what is purported to have been located there, then it seems to me that it's appropriate before we determine. I mean, we understand it's there, and we understand what Mr. Engelhardt did, what Mr. Engelhardt did, but I think it's important that we make sure that what is determined here is what is on the site. So,
And there's only 2 or 3 dimensions that are important. One is 10 feet from a 30-foot right-of-way,
Right.
and the other is how far off that proposed road.
right.
Because I think even fire code requires 6 feet, and I can't really read what they're showing there. But, I mean, I'm not suggesting that I do this work, but somebody needs to go out and determine how accurate that location is. You know, is it 10 feet? Is it 6 feet off the house? And I think we'd all feel comfortable that we're approving something that has been approved to be built.
Unfortunately, we're having to go back and ask your approval on something that was approved to be built based on what was presented.
Well, what we can do, we certainly don't want to deny the situation, not just because it's the mayor and council, but because in fairness to the applicant.
Of
But
course.
perhaps it'd be better to table it until we get some certified or.
Let me ask you, do you think this is appropriate? I would have no problem going out and locating that free, okay, I'm not charging, just to verify that these are right. I did
Well-
the original survey, the boundaries are there.
Well,
Or they can hire a surveyor, whatever.
no, where I am, I can tell you're not a lawyer when you say you're gonna do something for free.
I don't want to.
I don't think that's light of it, but unless there are objections, I think that that would be, first of all, very appreciated, Woody, that you would do it because you had the original.
Yeah, I did the original survey.
Right.
Prepared the site plan.
And that would give us the basis for making our determination very comfortably to make sure.
And if the building falls within what he's requested there's no issue.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, we don't know. Now, we got to hear evidence, but at this point in time, it seems an appropriate thing as long as we can get verification. Because Dave did approve it.
Right.
And that's on the town.
Right, that's what we're.
So unless there are any objections, then I would accept a motion to table.
Make a motion.
Yeah. Yes, because I asked for comments. Yes, welcome. You can come forward, certainly. Yes, you do solemnly declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're giving is correct and
I do.
true.
Yes.
Okay, have a seat and identify yourself, please.
My name is Sula Barfield. I reside at 120 Tingle Road. And I submitted a letter to the board earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have to read this to us since you have it. I have a couple questions. I live beside 122.
Right.
And the issue that I was having was with if they were going to put utilities to that property. And in order to do that, I was told they had to come through my property. And I was confused because the dwelling is on Upshur. So I don't understand why they're going through Tingle to connect it.
Well, and I was given your letter, Ms. Barfield, and certainly we're not putting you off, but our function is to only determine whether this setback is allowed.
Okay.
Your letter, and I got it from Ms. Boland, so is more appropriately considered, excuse me, by the Board of Public Works and the Public Works Director, I should say, and the Mayor and Council. We don't determine the issue of electric access or anything like that.
Okay.
All we're talking about is the setback. But your letter is in the possession of the town manager, and she certainly has informed us of it. We have copies of it, and it certainly will, I would presume, get the proper consideration.
I just greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. And just, I think everybody knows, if the motion to table were made and accepted, that does not mean that we will not have another hearing. We certainly will, and everyone will be free to speak what they want to have before the board. Okay? All right. Is there?
I make a motion that we table this.
Okay. Any objection?
No objections. I'll second that.
Okay, and I think that's appropriate. And I will say on the record, Woody, all kidding aside, that that's very generous of you to do that. And certainly, if you're the person who has a basis for determining it because of your record that is in the record.
Well, I will be able to, if I need to, I will certify its location.
Right.
If you inform or get the property owner's permission for me to go out there and do that.
Property owner here, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Is there any other thing to come before the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so
All right? And that is approved without debate. Thank you all for coming, and certainly you'll be notified. Mary?
Yes.
Will you